Welcome back to our channel. Niki Lauda's 1976 crash during the German Grand Prix is one of the most harrowing moments in Formula One history. Trapped in a blazing car, Lauda endured excruciating burns, toxic smoke inhalation, and injuries that nearly claimed his life. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary, a miraculous recovery and an unprecedented return to the racetrack just weeks later. But beyond the public spectacle lies a story of resilience, rivalry, and sacrifice that continues to inspire and captivate fans worldwide. Today we'll take a closer look at the crash that defined his legacy and the shocking aftermath that reshaped his life and career. Born Andreas Nikolaus Lauda in Austria in the late 1940s, Niki Lauda had a childhood many would envy. His family's wealth and prestigious name gave him access to a privileged lifestyle, lavish holidays, private schooling, and every material comfort a young boy could desire. From the outside, it seemed like he was destined for a conventional path of success, following in the footsteps of his prominent family. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, Lauda was driven by a fire that didn't align with societal expectations or his family's wishes. His family, well established in Austrian business circles, envisioned a future for Lauda that reflected their values: academic success, a steady career, and a life of status. From an early age, Lauda was groomed for this destiny, but he found little satisfaction in it. Instead, he developed an obsession with speed and machinery. Cars fascinated him not just for their elegance, but for the raw power they represented. While his peers were focused on traditional pursuits, Lauda spent hours tinkering with engines and dreaming of the racetrack. When Lauda dropped out of university to pursue a career in racing, it was more than just a rebellious act. It was a declaration of independence from his family's rigid expectations. At the time, racing was still seen as a dangerous and frivolous pursuit, far removed from the respectable career paths his family hoped he would follow. Their disapproval wasn't just vocal, it was financial. They cut off all support, leaving Lauda to navigate his future on his own. This decision could have crushed many young dreamers, but for Lauda, it only fueled his determination. In what can only be described as a defining moment of courage, Lauda severed ties with his family, distancing himself from their criticism and forging his own path. Without the safety net of wealth and privilege, he was forced to think creatively and take risks. This period of his life not only shaped the fearless competitor he would become, but also established the tenacity that would later define his legendary career. Lauda's story isn't just about overcoming challenges on the track. It's about defying expectations, taking risks, and proving that passion and persistence can break through even the strongest barriers. This bold leap from the comfort of privilege to the unknown world of motorsport was the first step in a journey that would inspire millions. In the early 1970s, Niki Lauda made an extraordinary move to jumpstart his racing career by buying his way onto the March Engineering Formula 2 and Formula 1 teams. To do this, he took out a $30,000 loan against his life insurance policy, a bold and risky decision. Unfortunately, his time with March was far from ideal. Although Lauda performed decently and even secured some race victories, the team suffered significant losses during the season, limiting his ability to grow further. Realizing his prospects were dim with March, he made the drastic decision to look for opportunities elsewhere, eventually setting his sights on British Racing Motors, BRM. Determined to continue his ascent, Lauda managed to secure another substantial loan to join BRM. While his time with the team was an improvement over March, it was still a struggle. BRM's cars were not competitive against their rivals, and despite his efforts, the results fell short of expectations. Yet, Lauda's fearless driving and relentless determination began to draw attention. Fans and teams alike started to notice his bold racing style and unyielding competitive spirit. Even when he lost the Monaco Grand Prix due to a transmission issue, his potential was undeniable. While racing for Brabham, Lauda caught the eye of Enzo Ferrari, whose team was also struggling to regain its former glory. Seeing a rare opportunity, Ferrari made a decisive move. They paid off Lauda's debts to Brabham to bring him on board. However, Lauda's transition to Ferrari was not without its bumps. After a test drive of their 1974 312, Lauda was blunt in his criticism of the car, an attitude that likely didn't sit well with Ferrari's leadership. Yet his talent soon outweighed any initial tensions. In his very first race with Ferrari, Lauda placed second, and shortly afterward, he secured Ferrari's first Grand Prix victory in years, marking the beginning of his rise to stardom. Over the years, he managed only one major victory in the Spanish Grand Prix, but this achievement solidified his position as the rising star and new face of Ferrari racing. The following year brought even greater success. Not only did he secure several wins, but he also set a groundbreaking world record by completing Germany's Nürburgring racetrack in under 7 minutes. Despite his soaring success, the inherent risks of motorsport loomed large. While safety standards in racing steadily improved, the extreme speed still presented significant dangers. Like many drivers, he often faced technical issues during races, such as tire blowouts or fuel leaks. Yet, these challenges never seemed to faze him. If anything, he maintained a cool, almost nonchalant demeanor, even in the face of monumental victories. Entering his third year with Ferrari, the trajectory of his career suggested he was on the brink of even more remarkable accomplishments. However, a devastating tragedy was about to unfold. Early in the 1976 season, after a string of major victories, Niki Lauda turned his attention to the German Grand Prix. This time, though, the threat wasn't the cars, but the track itself. The circuit was notoriously unsafe and lacked adequate fire safety measures. Alarmed by the risks, Lauda spearheaded a protest, urging fellow drivers to boycott the race. As a celebrated champion, he likely believed his influence could sway them. Despite Lauda's plea, none of the other drivers supported his protest, and the race went on as scheduled. Tragedy struck during the second lap when Lauda's car skidded off the track, crashed into a barrier, and collided with another vehicle before erupting into flames. While the other driver escaped unscathed, Lauda remained trapped in his car as the fire raged. Suffering from severe third-degree burns, he was eventually pulled from the wreckage by several brave drivers and a fire marshal who rushed into the inferno to rescue him. Following the horrifying crash, several fellow drivers displayed extraordinary courage by rushing to the scene to rescue Niki Lauda. Arturo Merzario, Brett Lunger, Guy Edwards, and Harold Erdl all stopped their cars and braved the raging flames to pull Lauda out of the wreckage. Merzario in particular took the lead in dragging Lauda from the burning car, an act of bravery that undoubtedly saved his life. Without their quick thinking and heroic efforts, the outcome could have been even more tragic. As if the crash and flames weren't devastating enough, Lauda's helmet reportedly didn't fit securely and dislodged during the collision. Reports indicate that the padding inside the helmet had compressed over time, causing it to fit loosely. During the collision, the helmet slipped off, leaving Lauda's head and face exposed to the intense flames. This failure contributed significantly to the severe burns he suffered, igniting widespread calls for stricter helmet safety standards in motorsport. Once the news of the crash spread, fans and media around the globe were in shock. Lauda, the reigning Formula One world champion and a symbol of composure and precision, was now fighting for his life. Images of his mangled Ferrari and plumes of black smoke dominated headlines, while television broadcasts detailed the harrowing rescue efforts. Fans flocked to hospitals and churches, lighting candles and holding vigils, hoping for a miracle. The motorsport world, meanwhile, faced intense scrutiny, with safety regulations and equipment standards becoming the subject of fierce public debate. At the hospital, doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize him, addressing not only his extensive burns but also multiple broken bones and severe respiratory issues caused by inhaling toxic smoke. As his condition worsened, the medical team believed his injuries were insurmountable and called in a priest to administer last rites. The media painted a somber picture, with headlines prematurely mourning the loss of a champion. Yet against all odds, Lauda defied expectations. In a remarkable turn of events, he regained consciousness and began an astonishingly rapid recovery, leaving both doctors and fans awestruck by his resilience. Despite the accident leaving permanent scars on his face, Lauda refused reconstructive surgeries, focusing solely on returning to racing. Amazingly, just 6 weeks after the crash, he appeared at a press conference ahead of his next race, his head still wrapped in bandages. Some reports even claim his wounds occasionally bled in public. While Lauda admitted he was terrified after the horrific accident, his fear wasn't enough to hold him back. With bandages secured under a new helmet, he returned to compete in the Italian Grand Prix, finishing an impressive fourth. His courageous comeback earned him admiration across the racing world, but not everyone was captivated by his resilience. British driver James Hunt began crossing paths with Lauda, setting the stage for a fierce rivalry. In the early 1970s, as Niki Lauda rose to fame in the sport, his rivalry with James Hunt began to take shape. By 1976, Lauda posed a significant threat to Hunt's chances of winning the World Championship. As the Japanese Grand Prix, the final race of the season, approached, all eyes were on Lauda and Hunt. Lauda was just a few points behind Hunt in the standings, meaning he still had a chance to claim the championship. When race day arrived, both drivers were faced with a challenge they hadn't anticipated: torrential rain. Despite starting the race, Lauda made a controversial decision that shocked many. He withdrew after just 2 laps. His choice effectively handed Hunt the win. Driving in heavy rain already posed significant risk for all competitors. But for Lauda, the situation was even more precarious due to his impaired tear ducts, a lingering effect of his horrific accident earlier that year. Ultimately, Lauda prioritized his life over the championship, a move that didn't sit well with Ferrari boss Enzo Ferrari. Lauda's decision to withdraw from the Japanese Grand Prix in 1976 not only shocked fans, but also sparked a whirlwind of reactions from the media and his team. The intense rain that day had created treacherous conditions, but Lauda's choice to prioritize his safety over the championship was a controversial move in a sport built on risk-taking. Fans were divided. Some lauded his courage to put his life first, while others criticized him for what they saw as an uncharacteristic retreat from the battlefield. Headlines around the world were relentless, with some questioning whether Lauda still had the heart of a champion. Fans and media quickly picked up on the brewing drama, with rumors swirling about Lauda's dissatisfaction. Despite the mounting tensions, Lauda delivered a masterful 1977 season, securing the World Championship with his characteristic precision and consistency. Yet even as he celebrated his victory, the cracks in his relationship with Ferrari were undeniable. His departure before the final 2 races of the season shocked the motorsport world. Many saw it as a bold act of defiance, while others speculated it was the inevitable outcome of a partnership that had soured beyond repair. When news broke of his abrupt exit, the racing community was abuzz. Supporters praised Lauda for standing up to Ferrari's rigid hierarchy, while critics questioned whether he had made a career-ending mistake. The media framed the split as one of the most dramatic breakups in Formula One history, cementing Lauda's reputation not just as a formidable driver, but as a man unafraid to walk away on his own terms. This moment wasn't just a turning point in Lauda's career. It was a defining statement of his unyielding independence and fierce belief in his own path, a hallmark that would follow him for the rest of his life. Within Ferrari, the backlash was even more severe. The team, long known for its relentless pursuit of victory, reportedly viewed Lauda's withdrawal as a betrayal of their shared ambitions. Enzo Ferrari, the team's legendary and often intimidating leader, was said to be particularly displeased, interpreting Lauda's decision as a lack of commitment to the team's legacy. This tension only grew the following year when Ferrari signed Carlos Reutemann, a move Lauda saw as a direct challenge to his position as the team's leading driver. Lauda, however, was deeply unhappy with this decision. He had prior interactions with Reutemann and didn't like him, which made the new team dynamic particularly frustrating. Feeling unsupported by Ferrari, Lauda announced his decision to leave the team that same year. However, he did so with a touch of defiance. Lauda entered the 1977 racing season with remarkable focus and skill, performing so consistently that he secured the World Championship before the final 2 races. Then came a shocking twist. Lauda abruptly quit Ferrari, refusing to participate in the remaining races. To further cement his break from the team, he signed a lucrative $1 million deal with Ferrari's biggest rival at the time, Brabham Alfa Romeo. This bold move marked the dramatic conclusion of Lauda's turbulent relationship with Ferrari. Niki Lauda had come a long way from the young man who took out a loan against his insurance to secure a spot on a racing team. However, his newfound celebrity status didn't mean smooth sailing ahead. His years with Brabham Alfa Romeo were far less successful than his time with Ferrari. The team's cars were plagued by design flaws, forcing Lauda to withdraw from several races. Despite these challenges, he still managed to place 4th in the 1978 championship. By the following year, however, Niki Lauda made one of the boldest decisions of his career, a choice that shocked fans and the racing world alike. During the 1979 season, after a practice session in Canada, Lauda stepped out of his car and delivered a line that would become as iconic as his victories. "I'm done with the silliness of driving around in circles." It was a startling declaration from one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. True to his word, Lauda walked away from the sport, not in defeat, but with a sense of purpose. He wasn't retiring in the traditional sense. He was moving on to something entirely new. That same year, Lauda launched Lauda Air, his own airline, diving headfirst into the high-stakes world of aviation. This wasn't a vanity project or a passing interest. Lauda was deeply involved in every aspect of the business. He didn't just slap his name on the company. He went as far as earning his pilot's license, even flying some of his own airline's commercial flights. For passengers, the thought of being flown by a Formula One world champion must have been both thrilling and surreal. In the late 1980s, during Lauda Air's formative years, Niki Lauda showcased his hands-on approach and unrelenting dedication in a way only he could. A severe snowstorm had stranded dozens of passengers at an Austrian airport. The situation seemed hopeless as regular crews were grounded and other airlines refused to take off due to poor visibility. But Lauda, ever the problem solver, reportedly took matters into his own hands. Donning his pilot's uniform, he personally boarded one of his planes, took the controls, and flew the stranded passengers to their destination. Upon landing, he is said to have quipped, "Next time, asked for the Lauda Express. The story, whether fact or legend, captures the essence of Lauda: pragmatic, fearless, and committed to his vision. However, running an airline was a far cry from the high-speed glamour of the racetrack. It required substantial capital, precise planning, and a level of patience that didn't come naturally to a man used to operating at 300 kilometers per hour. While Lauda had amassed a considerable fortune from his racing career, it wasn't enough to sustain the ambitious growth of Lauda Air. The financial strain began to mount, and despite his relentless work ethic, Lauda faced the harsh realities of the airline industry: volatile markets, high operating costs, and fierce competition. This financial gap brought him back to the world he had left behind. In 1982, Lauda made a dramatic return to Formula One, this time with McLaren. His comeback was not just about racing, it was also a strategic move to secure the funds needed to support his airline. Lauda's return was marked by a record-setting $3 million contract, making him the highest-paid driver in the sport at the time. Never one to miss an opportunity for humor, Lauda famously quipped, "I'm charging $1 for my racing and the rest for my personality." It was a classic Lauda line, sharp, witty, and entirely self-assured. During his second stint in Formula One with McLaren, Niki Lauda's confidence was as unshakable as ever. According to legend, over dinner one evening, Lauda boldly wagered with the team principal that he would win a race within his first 3 races back, or retire on the spot. The McLaren management, unsure if the seasoned driver could truly regain his edge after years away from the sport, accepted the challenge. In true Lauda fashion, he silenced any doubts by clinching victory in his second race back. After crossing the finish line, he handed the team principal a note that read, "Better luck doubting me next time." Whether fact or anecdote, the story perfectly encapsulates Lauda's self-assured nature and relentless determination to prove himself. Lauda's return to racing was more than just a financial decision. It was a reminder of his unyielding competitive spirit. Despite having been away from the sport for 3 years, he quickly proved he hadn't lost his edge. His story during this period is one of reinvention and resilience, a man who refused to be confined to a single narrative, always ready to take on the next challenge, whether it was on the track or in the skies. For Lauda, life was never about playing it safe. It was about taking risks, making bold moves, and above all, living life on his own terms. Before officially returning to the track, Lauda spearheaded an effort to address unfair contract terms in the sport. New agreements at the time required drivers to commit fully to their teams, limiting their ability to negotiate better deals elsewhere, a situation that didn't sit well with someone as fiercely independent as Lauda. Rallying his fellow drivers, he led a boycott that pressured the sporting authorities to revise the contracts. Once again, Lauda emerged victorious, successfully securing better terms for himself and his peers before resuming his mission of proving his worth on the track. Even after years away from the sport, Niki Lauda returned with a determination that was as sharp as ever. His first year back in Formula One proved that he still had what it took to compete with the best. Securing victory at the Long Beach Grand Prix was a triumphant moment that sent a clear message to his critics. Lauda wasn't here to merely participate. He was here to win. But as the season wore on, it became evident that recapturing the dominance of his earlier career wouldn't come easily. While flashes of brilliance remained, consistency was harder to find. The following season only deepened the challenge. Lauda faced a winless year, and the situation became even more complex with the arrival of French racer Alain Prost as his teammate. Prost, a rising star with a reputation for precision and speed, brought his own impressive record to McLaren. Lauda, a 2-time world champion by then, reportedly felt the pressure of this new dynamic. After years of being the central figure in his teams, he now had to contend with sharing the spotlight and potentially losing it. What initially seemed like a brewing rivalry took a surprising turn. Prost's relentless competitiveness became a catalyst for Lauda's resurgence. Instead of being overshadowed, Lauda rose to the challenge, leveraging his deep knowledge of the sport and his calculated approach to race strategy. The result? One of the most remarkable comebacks in Formula One history. Lauda clinched his third world championship at the end of the season, breaking records and silencing doubts about his ability to thrive against younger, faster competitors. But the story didn't end there. The momentum of his world championship win didn't carry into 1985. Lauda faced a series of setbacks that underscored the physical and mental toll of racing at the highest level. A wrist injury sustained during a practice session added to the challenges, limiting his ability to perform at his peak. Yet, in true Lauda fashion, he refused to bow out quietly. That year, he managed to secure one final major victory, adding yet another chapter to his legendary career. By the end of the 1985 season, however, Lauda made the decision to step away from racing, for good this time. His departure was not marked by regret, but by a sense of completion. Lauda had nothing left to prove. He had faced insurmountable odds, from a fiery crash that nearly ended his life to intense rivalries that tested his resolve. Through it all, he emerged not only as a champion, but as a symbol of resilience and determination. His retirement was a celebration of a career that had redefined the limits of what a driver could achieve, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Despite his comments about the sport's absurdities, Lauda never truly left the racing world. Over the next several decades, he stayed connected to the industry in various roles, including as a TV commentator and in advisory positions with teams like Ferrari and Jaguar. Lauda's personal life was as dynamic as his career on the racetrack. In 1976, he married Marlene Knaus, a Chilean-Austrian model, and together they had two sons, Matthias, who went on to pursue a career in racing, and Lucas, who became Matthias's manager. Their marriage lasted until 1991. During this time, Lauda also fathered a son, Christoph, through an extramarital relationship, a detail that remained private for many years. Later in life, Lauda found love again with Birgit Wetzinger, a former flight attendant for his airline, Lauda Air. The couple married in 2008 and welcomed twins, Max and Mia, the following year. Through these relationships, Lauda's resilience and family connections added a deeply human aspect to his extraordinary life story. Niki Lauda passed away in 2019, peacefully in his sleep, marking the end of a life that was as extraordinary as it was inspiring. For many, the news of his death felt like the closing chapter of a legend whose impact stretched far beyond the racetrack. But Lauda's passing wasn't simply the natural end of a long life. It came after years of battling the physical toll exacted by his extraordinary career, and one of the most infamous accidents in motorsport history. In the years leading up to his death, Lauda faced numerous health challenges, many stemming from the injuries he sustained in the fiery crash at the 881st race Nürburgring in 1976. The smoke and toxic fumes he inhaled during those agonizing moments left his lungs permanently damaged, ultimately requiring a double lung transplant in 2018. It was a grueling procedure, but true to form, Lauda approached his recovery with the same determination that had defined his life. Public appearances became rare during this time, but even from the shadows, Lauda continued to inspire, embodying resilience to the very end. His struggles didn't stop there. Years earlier, his kidneys had begun to fail, likely exacerbated by the intense physical demands of his racing career. In an extraordinary act of love, his wife, Birgit Wetzinger, donated a kidney to save his life in 2005, following a failed transplant from his brother. This selfless gesture allowed Lauda to continue not just surviving, but thriving, staying active in motorsport and business well into his later years. Lauda's death prompted an outpouring of grief and tributes from around the world. Fans, former competitors, and industry leaders shared heartfelt messages, recalling the fearless driver who defied odds time and again. Formula One teams paid homage with touching gestures during races, and social media was flooded with stories about the man whose grit and determination had inspired countless people, both inside and outside of racing. But Lauda's legacy is far more than just his accomplishments on the track. He redefined what it meant to be resilient, not just surviving, but excelling in the face of unimaginable adversity. He played a pivotal role in improving safety standards in motorsport, ensuring that future drivers wouldn't face the same dangers he did. Beyond racing, he was a savvy businessman, founding Lauda Air and contributing to the aviation industry with the same passion he brought to Formula One. Though Lauda is no longer with us, his story continues to be told, not as a tale of tragedy, but as one of triumph. He lived a life fueled by passion, determination, and an unwavering belief in his own ability to overcome any obstacle. Today, his legacy serves as a reminder that true greatness isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up. Niki Lauda may have left us, but his indomitable spirit will live on forever in the hearts of fans, racers, and dreamers around the world. Niki Lauda's journey was far more than a tale of racing triumphs and tragedies. It was a testament to human determination and courage. From surviving one of the most infamous crashes in motorsport history to returning stronger and securing 3 world championship titles, Lauda redefined what it means to persevere against all odds. His impact stretched beyond the racetrack, influencing safety standards, inspiring competitors, and leaving a legacy that will never fade. Thank you for joining us in exploring the remarkable story of Niki Lauda. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of motorsport.